Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of The New World. And in today's video, where we discuss the news regarding contract negotiations between the Washington Commanders and longtime wide receiver Terry Mclaurin after requesting a trade earlier this week. But before we go any further, make sure to hit that subscribe button and help us on the road to 10K subs. Hit that like button if you enjoy the content and make sure to share the video as well. And comment if you think Scary Terry will stay a Commander or be with a new organization when it comes to this upcoming NFL season. Now, fellas, with Scary Terry requesting a trade, do you think it's fair for Terry to do so? And what do you think the Commanders' upcoming season will look like if they lose their longtime wide receiver one?
This situation is a little tough because I feel where Terry Mclaurin is coming from. But I think that ultimately his trade request and his contract standoff with the Washington Commanders will put him in a disadvantageous position. And that is because he really just lacks leverage. And if you're not a top tier talent, when I say top tier talent, I know that term gets thrown out usually. I'm not talking about you being a top 10 in your position. I'm talking about you being a premier top 3 in your position, top 10 talent in the league, young talent. Terry Mclaurin is not any of those things. Is he a top 10 receiver? Sure, absolutely. I'll put him in that top 10. If somebody were to put him in the top 15, I can't really bat an eye at that. He's also 30 years of age entering the 2025 season. So we know from a skill position perspective, he is approaching that age clip for wide receivers. So that's going to be at a point where your production, your explosiveness, and your separation historically is going to be on the decline. So his best years are far behind him. They're not in front of him. So if you're not an ascending superstar like a Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, that's going to matter significantly in contract negotiation. I'm sorry. Even though he has been productive, he's never reached those elite thresholds. And I will admit, a lot of that's to do with quarterback play. The quarterback play in Washington, D.C. has not been great. So this is the first time he's been able to really be with a competent level quarterback, or we can say a quarterback that has potential. And he had a career season. So I give you that. That's cool. But as of now, okay, you're requesting a trade. What's a better situation than your current situation? No contending team is going to be lining up to overpay him. The deal that's on the table for the Washington Commanders is going to be the best deal for Terry Mclaurin, and it's also the best fit for him as well. You're going to be the number one option on a team that has a quarterback that we don't even know what the ceiling is for Jaden Daniels. Ceiling is super high. That's that first element of it. But I think what's really kind of important that we talk about is that people kind of treat skill position players like NBA players. They're not. And really, these NFL players, you guys got to blame yourselves. You got to blame that current collective bargaining agreement. I know people don't want to hear about the financials, but we finna get into it right now. The collective bargaining agreement has been designed to favor team control, not player freedom, especially for these veterans like Mclaurin. One of the biggest barriers is the franchise tag. If Terry Mclaurin plays out this season without a new deal, Washington still holds the option to tag him in 2026, locking him up for another full year, fully guaranteed contract. This avoids any open market bidding war, and it gives the Commanders all the power, all the leverage. And guess what? He's going to be a year older. Additionally, those penalties for holding out have become far more severe since that 2020 CBA. Veterans who hold out during training camp are subject to daily fines of $50,000. That's a lot of damn money. That money is going to add up quickly if you are to hold out. If you are going to hold out, you got to understand the consequences that come with that. For one, you're not guaranteed a top tier extension if you do hold out. It's a very risky and costly tactic. And even if he does reaches that unrestricted free agency boundary, reality is really, really grim, dog. Teams have become more disciplined with spending, especially on older receivers, due to all of that. In my opinion, even though it's harsh, honestly, the Commanders are really just conducting smart business. They are. They can play hardball with this guy because they can. It's the best opportunity and situation for him. And they're entering a new era. Even let's say that Terry Mclaurin holds out, or he does end up walking. They lose him. You still got a pretty premier talent, and Jaden Daniels is only going to get better. Now, I will say this, and Buffy may get into this when he provides his tape. If Terry Mclaurin doesn't play, and Deebo Samuel is your number one option, hey, sophomore slump is just going to be inevitable, but it'll be understandable.
No!
because that man right there is done. But Terry McLaurin, no disrespect, bro. You go to a different team, you're not someone that can single-handedly elevate a quarterback and take over games like the league's best, like a Jettas, like a Chase. You're not that guy. You're not in that caliber, bro. The Commanders, they can regroup because they have that talent at the quarterback position. That's what I have to say, bro. It's unfortunate. Some people may be mad at the Commanders for conducting this type of practice, but it really is honestly smart business tactics. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm kind of struggling with this conversation because I think, honestly, Terry McLaurin has kind of become one of the hardest players to rank in the NFL just based off how many quarterbacks and how many different styles he's had to play, with. We've known, and I can go on a tangent about this, but he's played with 12 different quarterbacks in the last couple of seasons. He's been through a lot of eras, from Carson Wentz to I don't even want to mention the other guys. Like Ryan Fitzpatrick started in one game for the Washington Commanders. So I can't really take, his production before kind of last season really that seriously. But even though he's putting up great numbers with these quarterbacks, but it's like we don't really know how great he is now. Last year we got a good, reading on how great he was, in that offense. He was the guy. He was the top 10 wide receiver in the league, top 4 wide receiver in that division. That division has really good wide receivers. So, he was one of the better receivers in that division. So Terry McLaurin, yeah, I kind of agree with you in the fact that he is kind of a top 10 wide receiver. And, a top 10 wide receiver, you're not really threatening to break the bank. But you got to look at it from his situation also. It's like, okay, he's trying to create leverage in this situation. He's been through the terrible periods that Washington, subjected him to, like last couple of seasons. So he's looking at this as an opportunity. And I can definitely see him getting traded more than I can see Micah Parsons from the standpoint of they don't really need him as much. And I'm not saying that, the Washington Commanders is going to be good without Terry McLaurin because I have my doubts about Deebo Samuel as wide receiver 1 and the Lord and Savior 2025 year. But they still, from a certain perspective, do have a brighter future in the fact that, they do have a quarterback solidified for the future. Then Daniels, he was threatening top 5 talks, last season. So that was something. So I'm looking at this situation. I honestly can see a scenario, and who knows? Maybe before the time we put this video out, he's already traded. But I can definitely see a scenario where they do ship him off, and I can't even blame Terry McLaurin for trying to seek out a $33 million deal. It's in a higher ballpark of a player he is, but I don't think it's really disrespectful or really arrogant of him to kind of demand that much money. I'm just looking at it. That's almost about CeeDee Lamb money, and yeah, CeeDee Lamb's a better player, has a better future from what I'm projecting, but I don't think it's too crazy for him to kind of seek out a deal like that, especially with the Washington Commanders. So I do think the Commanders are going to ship him. I don't think that's a bad deal for them. But yeah, next season is going to look really, really rough. And I was going to talk about this later on in the video, but we kind of had to bring this up. And how good are the Washington Commanders going to look if they do trade him? Because looking at the scenario, Jaden Daniels, if you look at his passing attempts and, his passing completions when Terry McLaurin was out the game, it was a little spotty. And I'm not saying that, he's completely reliant on Terry McLaurin, but he is the number 1 go-to guy. So you're going to have a scenario where you take this young rookie who's going to be a sophomore, his number 1 wide receiver away. Then, we might get a scenario where he performs like C.J. Stroud last season, where C.J. Stroud, he had a lot of injuries at the wide receiver position and his offensive line failed him. I wouldn't put that past me of seeing an example like that, but you never know. So I think that's the important thing Washington does have to consider. But if I was them, I'll honestly try to move him as a piece. Or, just pay up. Just pay up. So
really quick question for you, Buffy. Gun to your head right now, or $5 million on the line, you make a decision. I can ask this to Jay as well. Are they going to eventually pay him?
I think they're going to pay him, and that's my thing. But I'm not saying, but my point is because I think they can afford him, which is the thing. It's not like they can't afford him like another team who's dead in the cap. But I don't think they're going to do it. There's also like another light where other teams need wide receivers. Like you look in the AFC, some of these guys. And honestly, if you think of it, if you look at the contract that Lamar Jackson's on, his shit's going to be, 2029 to 2031. They could realistically sign Terry McLaurin. That would be scary having Terry McLaurin on that roster. Like how loaded these guys are, I don't know if y'all care about Madden ratings, but they had the most 90+ overalls like on the team. We saw how many all-pros they had on the team last season. So, this is going to be really scary. So hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully he goes to another team. I'm hearing talks that The Cardinals are interested. For sure, the Chargers. The Chargers would definitely need him. If we're keeping it real, like they're just throwing it to one guy. So this other option, I don't think Washington's going to settle for that deal. Honestly,
I got two options. One, I think if they do settle on a deal, I think it'll end up being for about 29 a year. I don't think they're giving them 30. Like, Buffy was saying, I wouldn't be mad at it. I will understand it. I don't think they care to give him like AJ Brown type of money. And option two, I low-key could see Terry McLaurin being a Buffalo Bill. Josh
they can't
Allen.
do that because of their contract situations. Like they're too limited in that stretch. They would have to move around a lot of pieces because I just looked at their contract stuff. And they wouldn't be able to afford a wide receiver. That's what I was saying. Like he could realistically go to one of those other teams that I mentioned in AFC, or the Cardinals, or a situation like that. So, but the Bills, I don't think they have the money. I think the Bills are a little over, so they wouldn't be able to do that. Or he'll have to take a major pay cut, and I don't see that. If he's demanding $33 million, I don't see him taking a major pay cut because if you just look at the situation, okay, the Bills, they're not that much better than the Commanders. So you try to go there, but you take a massive pay cut. Like you kind of could have just stayed in Washington at that point.
As far as the Commanders, let's just say worst case scenario, Terry McLaurin is gone. I definitely believe that might be kind of inevitable that JD5 is gonna have a sophomore slump just based off of what he's presented with. That defense, they're not much better than they were last season, and they weren't that good. Their DB1 was freaking Marshawn Lattimore, who was getting baked by Mike Evans like every time. And the offensive line, it really wasn't that good, but JD5 is very mobile, so he was able to make it look better than it was. And like Buffy was saying, he looked way better as far as passing when Terry McLaurin was out there. So having Deebo Samuel, and I know everybody, if you've been watching social media, especially when it's surrounding football, we've been watching those footwork drills that Deebo Samuel has done, and let's just say that his quick first step is, I don't even think he got that badge equipped. He looked like he ain't really that fast. It could just be the camera speed or something. I don't know, man. But that brother, he don't look that fast. He still look a little chubby. So I'm not really moved by it. And we already know how the Commanders' running back room is, especially with Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson. They're very fumble prone. They both got small hands, so that'll be a nail biter as well. But they do got Dan Quinn, who will make their defense look better than what it is. But I think it'll definitely be key for the Commanders to keep Terry McLaurin if they want to somehow repeat what they did this past season, because now you got the Dallas Cowboys coming back, who just got George Pickens, and it's looking like Dak Prescott got a wide receiver duo with him. We are all in agreement that Micah Parsons will still be a Dallas Cowboy when it comes to the beginning of the season. So if the Commanders want to do this, they trying to repeat what they did, they better sign Terry McLaurin. If not, they just might end up having another season, CJ Stroud type of season with the Texans. They won't somehow make it to the playoffs because their division is actually stacked. We got the Eagles, who more than likely gonna be either the first seed or second seed. We got the Cowboys, who could make a push to be first seed, and we got the Giants. That defense, if y'all been watching, Russ, Malik Neighbors, the D-ball, good old reliable. I just had to throw that out there. But yeah, the Commanders, hey, they better come up with a decision quick, because their season gonna depend on it.
Hey, Eagle fans, come at me. If the Washington Commanders, they re-sign Terry McLaurin, you're not finishing first in your division. I'm standing on it.